So here's a simple little spring box. It's not very elaborate at all. You make a simple form out of slabs of wood and or OSB board or whatever you have, plywood, and pour your box. So you would obviously need an outer wall and an inner wall to get this sort of a shape. And then I just use a series of pipes. This bottom pipe, you can see the water flowing through here. That's a blob of cement that got stuck on there, but you can see the water flowing through, coming in. This is right now going out, the outlet pipe. I made a mistake in this one, and so it ends up coming into the drain pipe and has to well up to this level, and then it feeds into this line, and this line runs to the cistern that I built in the stream bed, off to the side of the stream bed. And then this is the overflow. So you got your spring inlet or conduit, you got your cistern pipe that flows to the cistern, and you got your overflow. So this is one of the simple ways to do it. There are a lot more elaborate methods than this. This is just a sort of a quick, easy one. And then you can see there that the drain pipe is just letting the spring water out right now, because I was cleaning it. Every now and again you have to wash it out because silt will build up. You could use a filter, but the problem with the filter is it'll clog. So I don't. I just basically take the end cap off and let it drain out and hose it out. I've got fairly good gravity pressure from the tower I built. Let's see if I can wash this cap out here before I put it back on. So we have a lot of clay here, and clay tends to fill up in this little box, but it's never stopped operating. It's been running for, oh man, about 4 years, and I've never cleaned it out. There's even a little frog living in there, which I encourage to leave. And by the way, in your overflow pipe, it's a good idea to put some screen on the end with some tape or something, or a clamp, so that little varmints can't get into your spring box. And so I'm just going to clean this out. There we go. And then I'm going to put that cap back on. I'll probably put it on a little harder than that. But now what's going to happen, obviously, is the spring box will fill. It'll fill up to the level of this conduit or pipe that goes to the cistern, and it'll continue to feed the cistern. Okay. Now, a typical question is, how do I know if it's a spring or just a seepage? Don't look for a spring after a rain. Look for it during a fairly dry season. If you have a fairly dry season and you still see water coming out of the side of a bank, and usually that's where it's going to come out, then it's likely a spring. And continue to monitor it for a while. And also you can muddy up the water and see if it clears back out. And that's another way to know that you got a good spring. So you can see the little spring box is starting to fill. Another telltale sign is this. This is an animal watering hole. For some reason, looks like something like a coon or something like that has come and has continued to dig out this section here to get use of spring water. During the dry season. We've had a very dry period, and now we just had a rain. And so since I blocked off the original site, the animal engineered a second one and is digging up under here to get some water. So in dry season, that'll still have some water for the little critters. So that's their little watering hole, and this is mine. So luckily we can still both use it. Now, traditionally with springs like this, there may be several junctures where this comes out. I made the mistake of building one higher up, further up in that field up there, and it was a beautiful, big, elaborate spring box. Spent a lot of energy and cement money on that, and then found out that as soon as the rains subsided, that watering spring hole stopped, and this one continued. So yeah, you learn by experience. Don't look on a rainy day for a spring, or weeks after a rainy day. You might want to wait a month or two. And so anyway, that's our simple little spring box, and I'm going to build a cement lid. I've only used a simple wooden lid for this, which is not the best. could be knocked off by a falling branch. Cement lay is going to be heavier, and I'm trying to make it seal better. But there you have it. You can see that this naturally runs down into a little creek bed. And by the way, there's an outlet for the spring down there too. So when this one quits, the lowest one will still work. But unfortunately, I haven't been able to capture that. There is a way I could if I built a dam, but you know, so that's just a little creek, dry creek is what we call it. It's wet right now because of the rain, but not enough rain to make it flow. So in this case, I didn't even bury the PVC pipe. You can see it just runs along to the woods here. The reason for that is, the reason that I didn't bury it, simply time factor. Was busy building, and also because it doesn't really hold a lot of pressure. Traditionally, a spring does not have high pressure unless it's an artesian type, and even then, your spring box is simply going to let the pressure out if it's too high, and your pipe is not going to hold that much pressure. So it's rarely full all the way. So when it freezes, the pipe ends aren't even glued together. It can pop itself apart, and or you know, it's not a critical factor even in freezing cold weather. So it goes under the road here, comes out and over, and here you can see, I'll show you something here. This is what we call the dry creek. We have a lot of these here in Missouri, and during the flood season, of course, it holds a lot of water, and it's actually washed down to bedrock. This was not like this when I first got here, but with my interference and different things, it's caused it to do different things. And so here's the flow area for the creek. And over there you see the cistern that I've built. You can just see the top of it. Now, it's not a real good idea to put your cistern right beside the creek. Why? Because you can get contamination, you can get overflow into your cistern and get mud and all of that. However, with this system here, this is broad and wide enough that it can survive a 100-year level flood and still not get flooded. So there's enough space. I've watched the water flow. There's enough space here for the water to get by without overflowing the cap on this cistern and getting inside. And we've had really bad floods this last year. Like I say, 100-year record or more, and this worked fine. Now, I had the advantage of being able to build on bedrock, as you see here. You don't want really to build a cistern on just gravel. I mean, it would probably stay put, but it would be a little more tricky. So I built it on bedrock. And what I did actually was to save myself a lot of work. Digging in Missouri is an absolute nightmare, and this is why. You see, in other places you have soil. Here you have rock, and so you can't even get your shovel in the ground. You basically have to use a pick and a shovel. And what I did was I actually closed off this section. I dammed it off, and I opened up a slight side channel that had formed, but it was a lot of work. I had to dig a narrow trench down through there to the cistern. And when the floods came in the spring, it took 2 years, but it washed it all down to bedrock again. And so I was able to clear out an area to build a cistern. And then when I had the cistern built, I simply loaded the rock and rubble back in place and dammed it back up, and it opened this area back up, and it washed it all back out again. So that was an easy way to excavate while I was busy building our straw bale house up there. So anyway, this cistern I built a very simple way. Now, how do you build a form when you can't sink anything into the ground when you got bedrock? Well, I actually used these rocks with plywood, leftover plywood that I found at my work site where I worked, and I just propped it up and made walls. Very simple. And we mixed the cement in a wheelbarrow. Took a while, about 2 weeks maybe. And this is not the biggest cistern in the world, but it does fine for 2 people. Our kids have pretty much grown up and are sort of on their way out of the home, so we didn't have a whole lot of use. And the little spring feeds into this. I also have, you see that pipe there, it's disconnected right now, but that's for rainwater. So I have a way of filtering the rainwater down into this cistern if need be. I prefer not to because I don't have filters for the roof system and it carries a lot of debris traditionally, unless you have a special filter system, like I say. And you could build one. There are things you can find online to build your own, and then there are expensive ones you can buy. And that would solve that problem. But I don't really need it when I have this spring, which runs, I'd say, about 3/4 of the year or more. There may be a month or two that it runs dry. Sometimes I can get by even with the water that I have during that period. But if need be, I can also fill it from the gutters or from a pipe outlet up at the house where I can haul water. So there's 3 ways of filling that cistern: the spring, the gutters, rainwater, and also hauling water and parking a vehicle up there and emptying into a pipe that filters down. I also have a simple system here where we can sidetrack the spring water and use it directly, because we can drink that. We do filter it, but we can drink that once we run it through a ceramic filter. So I simply have a way of switching there. Now, ideally, this would be better buried in a trench system, but just haven't had that time yet. So, other priorities, you know. So here's the cistern built in, and it's just right into the side of the bank here. I just used stainless steel and then roofing metal on top of that. So there we have it. I don't traditionally drink the water out of the cistern because, you know, it's sitting for a longer period of time. I also have a way of, I didn't show you this, but I have a way of flushing the system when need be. Get through these weeds here. And so there you can see right now the flow is low because I'm interfering with it. I haven't really filled up the spring box properly yet, so it's just starting to flow again. So down here I have these 2 pipes, work like jets, and I just unscrew this end cap here, and then it very quickly evacuates the spring box. And of course I can screw off the lid and get in there and hose it out. Next I'll show you my gravity fed tower, or my gravity pressure creating tower.